One of the things that I think is really important for freelancers to understand about working with agencies is that you are not very likely to get the full rate that you're expecting. Right? You're probably not going to get your full hourly or your full project rate. And there's reason for that. It's because you're also not doing the majority of the work. Your job as a writer is to write, is to produce what is given to you. So if you think about what goes into getting a project or assigning a project to a freelancer, somebody has to sell it. Somebody has to create the SOW or the contract and deal with legal and procurement. Somebody has to set up the SME interview or the kickoff call and manage all of that. Somebody has to do the outline and the content brief. Somebody has to manage the workflow or the flow of that project and edit it and make sure that the client's happy with it. So all of those things don't typically happen with the freelance writer. So your job is as the writer. So you're probably, if you want that kind of relationship with an agency versus going for a direct client, you're probably going to have to be willing to give up some of your own margin so that the agency can make their margin.
Absolutely. And I always list that as in terms of pros and cons of working for an agency, because I get that question a lot. And the thing is, if you really hate hustling for clients and you hate cold outreach and you hate the uncertainty of that, maybe you should have an agency relationship where you are just simply assigned work, but there are drawbacks, like you said, because someone is doing the
that as well.
Right. And that's going to cost. So what do you look for in a freelancer? The freelancers listening to this are dying to know, how do I get hired by agencies? What do clients in general look for so that I can position myself competitively?
It's a great question because the answer has evolved over time. Because of the types of clients that we work with, I did, and I still do to some extent, look for domain expertise. Not necessarily experience, but domain expertise. We work with, let's say for cybersecurity, for example, it's not enough to understand just kind of the general concepts that go along with cybersecurity. We're looking for specific expertise or experience or insight and familiarity with things like IAM and PAM, or intrusion, or zero trust architecture, like really common, high profile and very popular themes in the market now. A lot of that can only be gained either from direct experience working that way or from previous experience in a different field. So some of the writers that we've worked with now or in the past, they were software developers, because we work with some teams with organizations, their primary business is DevOps or DevSecOps. So we need to understand, so developer operations. So we need to understand as a writing team, what goes into the software development lifecycle. Like, it's not something you can necessarily just Google and understand and just kind of regurgitate. You really need to understand the experience, why it matters to the business, why it matters to the market, and be able to dive a little bit deeper into each of those, into any topic or any subject. So what I really look for, on top of just base level experience and a solid portfolio, or at least just some good examples, relevant examples of your work, relevant to me, I should say. Good portfolio, relevant samples, relevant experience. But really what I'm looking for is the ability to conceptualize very complex ecosystems in very simple terms, right? You don't need to necessarily understand how all technology works, but I do expect that you will understand how the technology fits together, and most importantly, why it's important to the company or to our client. How do they talk about it? What does it mean to their business to be able to do this, that, or the other thing? What is the purpose or the point or the value of a particular type of technology? Really understanding the landscape and how things fit together and translating that into the business value is, I think, the most important skill that a freelancer can have, at least in the B2B tech space. And more broadly, whether you're in B2B tech or just regular B2B services or even business to consumer, being able to understand why other people care about something and writing to those motivations is the single most important skill that you can have. And you need to be able to tie it directly from here to there. You need to be able to connect the dots, and you need to show me that you know how to connect the dots between here's what the product is and does, and what it means to you as the user or as the consumer, and why you should care about it.
Yeah, I would say that's the most underrated skill set, is understanding why you are writing what you're writing versus just trying to put words on the page. And I think that's why a lot of writers do get stuck taking constant courses about copywriting techniques and how to write and maybe sentence structure and flow. And of course, that stuff is important. But if you don't have an understanding of why it matters to that business owner, the content or copy or whatever isn't as effective. And I think a lot of clients would